In this video 6.4, we are going to be solving equations with variables on both sides of the equal sign. By the end of the video and work time in class, you should be able to say, I can write and solve equations with variables on both sides. So here you can see where the equal sign is, and we have terms on both sides that have the variable p in them. So what you want to do is get the terms with the variable p, for example 2p and negative 4p. We want to combine them on one side of the equal sign, and in doing that we're going to use our properties of equality to move one to one side to do that the combining. Then we're going to get the constants to the other side of the equal sign, which are just your numbers like your 9 and your negative 3 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2p, it's plus 2p, and to remove it from the left side, I do the opposite of plus 2p, which is minus 2p. And when we do this on both sides, we're keeping everything balanced. This is 0, so then we're left with 9 plus 0, which is just 9, equals negative 3. And then negative 4p minus 2p, they're like terms, so this ends up being negative 6p. When we do negative 4 minus 2, we get the negative 6. Then I'm going to, I see that the p now is on one side. So that's really the first thing you want to do is get the variables to one side. Now to get that p alone, I'm going to get rid of the negative 3. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So I'm getting my constants to one side here. That's 0. 12 then is the same as negative 6p. And then divide both sides by that negative 6. And 12 divided by negative 6 gives you negative 2. And obviously then finish by plugging in negative 2 both there and also here, and you see that it's the same on both sides, so then you did it correct. In this problem, specifically in this equation, there isn't a variable on both sides of the equal sign, but we will get into problems with parentheses where you do have variables on both sides, so I just want to practice this. First thing you want to do is distribute and get rid of the parentheses. So you're doing 4 times 3u, which is 12u, and then 4 times, not 1, but negative 1, which gives you negative 4, and that equals 20. So then our parentheses are gone. You're going to add 4 to both sides. That's 0. And then you divide both sides by 12 to get rid of the multiplication of 12. 12 divided by 12 simplifies to 1u equals 2. And then come back up here, check your work. 3 times 2, 6 minus 1, and then 5 times 4 is 20. So this is the correct answer. First thing you want to do is get the variables to one side. In this one, I would subtract a t from both sides. See, there's a t on the right side. I'm going to subtract a t then from both sides. Instead of subtracting a 5t from both sides, that way I'm just keeping my t terms positive. That's 0. And then 5t minus t gives you a 4t. Then you have minus 4 equals, and then that's negative 8 because there's a minus sign in front of the 8 there. Then you're going to add the 4 to both sides. That's 0. So 4t is the same as negative 4. And then divide both sides by the 4 to undo your multiplication of 4. That's 1. 1t equals negative 1. And then plug in negative 1 both here and here, and you see that it's the same on both sides. So we know from that review a couple problems ago that the first thing you want to do is get rid of the parentheses, and then we'll combine the terms to one side, those k's. So get rid of the parentheses by distributing 3 times k, which is 3k, and then 3 times, not 8, but negative 8 gives you negative 24, and that equals the opposite of k. So I want to move 3k over to the right side so it's combined with the opposite of k. So to get rid of 3k, I'm going to subtract 3k from both sides. This is 0. So now I'm left with negative 24, which is the same as, now you've got the opposite of k, which we know if there isn't a number there, it's negative 1. So if you look at your coefficients, since they're both k's and they're both k's, you can combine them. You have negative 1 minus 3, which gives you negative 4k. And then to isolate the k, get rid of the negative 4 that you're multiplying by and divide it by the negative 4 on both sides. That gives you a positive 1, so the k is alone. Negative 24 divided by negative 4 then gives you a positive 6. And check your work. You're going to plug 6 in here and 6 in here. And you see that both sides simplify to negative 6. So k is 6 is the correct solution. In this problem, it's a word problem, so we're going to take the words, write an equation, and then solve that equation. And these equations in this chapter will have variables on both sides. Each week you set aside $18 for a stereo and put the remainder in a savings account. After 7 weeks, the amount you place in the savings account is 4.2 times your total weekly pay. How much do you make each week? So we have an equal sign. And so we're finding how much you make each week, so maybe we'll use W for how much you make in 1 week. So that's going to be our variable that we're going to see on both sides of the equation. So if you take how much money you make each week, you set aside, it says $18. Now set aside, that means you're subtracting $18. So this is what you do every week. You take what you make, W, minus 18. And then you put the remainder into savings. After 7 weeks, so this right here is just 1 week, so what you have to do is put parentheses around all of that multiplied by 7, because you multiply the whole W minus 18 by the 7. That's where the parentheses come in. And after the 7 weeks, the amount you place in the savings account is the same as 4.2 times your weekly pay, which is W. So now we have our equation. You see we also do have that variable on both sides. The first step is getting rid of the parentheses first, 7 times W, and then 7 times negative 18 gives you negative 126, is the same as 4.2 times W. And I want to subtract the 7W from the left side, and then I'm going to do the same on the right side. That's 0. So I'm left with negative 126. And 4.2x minus 7x gives you negative 2.8, W, not x, but W, so negative 2.8 W, because 4.2 minus 7 is negative 2.8. And since you're multiplying, you do the opposite, you divide by the negative 2.8 to both sides. And so that simplifies to 1. So the weekly pay is negative 126 divided by negative 2.8, and that gives you a positive 45. So $45. Can you say, I can write and solve equations with variables on both sides? Here's your output for your notebook. Be prepared with any questions for the work time in class.